I call you my angel, angel, queen of my heart. Deep down I know you belong to the stars. You're the reason why I work so hard.
Mainland 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial. 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial.
Good morning and welcome to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM, the sound of Lagos. Today is the 4th day in the month of September, the 9th month of the year 2023. Well, I trust we had a restful weekend. I trust that, we had fun as well over the weekend. Whether or not, things are aligning as we want them to be, but we should just stay hopeful. Well, as it is our tradition here every Monday, before Trends in the Papers, we try to bring you up to speed on what trended, what were the major trending stories over the weekend. This is Trends in the Papers, where we look through major trending stories from the papers. So, what were the major trending stories over the weekend? I have here, Edo State holds peaceful local government elections. APC, Labour Party, kick, call for cancellation. Well, that's an interesting one, actually, seeing as PDP won all local governments in the state. Well, that was called from Vanguard newspaper on the 2nd of September. We also have revealed PDP to decide 𝗰𝗃 and others' fate after tribunal's verdict. And that was taken from the Sun newspapers, also on the 2nd of September. Tinubu recalls all Nigerian ambassadors. That's taken from the Guardian newspaper. Tinubu's wife, Remi Tinubu, urges Imo women to vote massively for Uzodima's re-election, taken from the Sun. I'm satisfied with conduct of Edo local government polls, and that's coming from none other than the governor of Edo State, Obaseki, and that was taken from the Punch newspaper. Gabon reopens border 3 days after military coup, taken from The Nation. Ex-President Jonathan's community, Otoke, sends SOS to federal government and Bayelsa state government. That's taken from the Sun. DSS releases Kingsley Obiora and CBN deputy governor. That's taken from Business Day newspaper. On all of that stories were the major trending stories on the 2nd of September 2023. Moving on to yesterday, which was the 3rd of September, we have Makinde approves RCCG pastor as new Seun of Ogbomosho. That was a big trending story over the weekend. I'm sure we all stay tuned for that one. That was taken from the Premium Times. Tinubu leaves Abuja on Monday, that is today, to attend to G20 summit in India. That was taken from Vanguard. Subsidy palliative distribution begins in Lagos. That's taken from the Sun newspaper. Naira will bounce back stronger than dollar soon, says Pastor Adeboye, General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. And that was taken from the Punch. And finally, Edo Deputy Governor ejected from Government House Complex. Well, a lot of intrigues happening in Edo State, and that was taken from the Nation newspaper. And the major trending stories over the weekend compiled by Kelvin Nwafili. Thank you very much. And those were the major trending stories over the weekend. Now let's see what we have for today. My name is OMOBOLA Sandra. This is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. And FUHAD Saheed will be joining in via the phone line in a bit. We're live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can join the program live and drop your comments as the show progresses. I have my papers here. I have The Guardian, I have The Punch, and Vanguard, and of course The Nation newspaper in no particular order. And we will be looking through the major trending stories this week. For today, we'll do that up until 8:30, and then by 8:40 we move on to Mainland Focus. Good morning, Ford.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm chirpy. I'm excited.
Not really. Well, local government elections were held in Edo State on Saturday.
And
And as,
PDP won everything.
and as expected, it was a complete ridicule of what democracy should be. You know, the electoral process was fraught with a lot of malpractices. I think basically the results were just written somewhere and presented to the people.
You know, there are calls right now as regards, the state Independent Electoral Commission in Edo State as regards the election that happened in Edo on Saturday.
You know the thing about state independent electoral commission is that it's not just only in the Edo State. I think our governors again are proving to us that we may not be ready for democracy. What exactly democracy is about is not something that fits into our psyche or our psychology as a people. 18 local governments all won by the PDP. The entire councillorship seat in that state was won by the PDP. In fact, the reports we got from our colleagues on ground was that even before election materials arrived, results were being released. And if you look at the figures, very good figures. Sometimes you have people scoring maybe 20,000, Labour Party 100,000, and then the local government going up to 1 million votes. The entire vote in the governorship.
Can you move a bit? I can barely hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
No.
No, okay.
I can hear you, but it's not clear.
All right. Well, again, I'm just trying to say that whatever happened in Edo State.
All right. We'll try to reconnect back with FUHAD so we can get, something smooth and clear from that end. But, intrigues of local government and state government conversation has been something we have been focusing on at Milan 98.3 FM for quite a while now. 𝗪𝗶𝗃 highlighted it also, as well on Wednesday last week. That's Edo State politics now. And FUHAD also highlighted it last two editions of Political Roundtable. So, we'll see how things would pan out. FUHAD?
Yes, I'm with you. So, again, just a complete ridicule of our democracy is what we saw. And it's not just limited to Edo State, when our governors eventually decide to conduct local government elections, they rig it using state electoral commissions, impose their own strategies, and eventually expect them to come prostrate when they complain about their state funds and all of that. So it's unfortunate, really. We are not ready. I don't think we are ready for democracy, Sandra. The way it should be practiced.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go through the major stories, the major trend stories for today. I'll start with the Guardian newspaper and the major headline there: cyber criminals exploit weak regulations to harvest data and defraud Nigerians. So, fraudsters are leveraging different means to access consumers' data. So, there have been rise on people just calling you. I don't know if you've been seeing the videos. People just call and they'll be asking you different questions over the phone. What is your... and then there's another one, FUHAD, where they will send you a message and say,
and then you
got a job. And then, yes, that you got a job. I don't know. So, a job that you did not apply for, why are you clicking on the link? I don't know. But
for informed Nigerians, the cyber criminals might not be so lucky with maybe educated, well-informed Nigerians. But I look at our uninformed population, that are not too educated, too exposed. Because of technology, they are now using smartphones. So every message that drops on their phone, they are eager to just click on it. And you know what these things are? These are mails that are, intended to compromise, their bank accounts, WhatsApp mail accounts, and all of that.
Personal data on the phone, yeah.
Exactly, personal data and all of that, So they take advantage of people who are not that educated or enlightened, to take, harvest their data, for all manner of fraudulent practices. So I think the government needs to do more sensitization and information to the people. Don't click on everything and anything you see on social media. Type on Facebook, WhatsApp, because that's what these guys do, basically.
Well, we have riders to that story. Concerns over regulatory lapses in POS and agent banking regulations. Loan sharks low on compliance with directives. Nigerians recount ordeals as losses mount. And then AMBAN dissociate members as NDPC investigate banks. So there are fresh concerns over an alleged illegal surge in mining of data belonging to Nigerians through POS terminals. Now, wow. A situation that is threatening the survival of agent banking, a scheme initiated to deepen financial inclusion in the country. Increasingly, what we have now is that criminals with sophisticated tools are actively targeting vulnerable merchant POS terminals, mining payment card data and pins for card cloning and all of that. That's a scary one. How is the CBN supposed to check that? When you go to use the POS, and then whilst you're using the POS, then they put some cloning things into the POS. They clone your data, they get your PIN, they get, all of the details that is needed to be gotten, the expiration date of the card, everything. And then
I've seen Sandra, I've seen some Nigerians tell me that they don't use their cards at POS terminals again. They simply do transfers. Because they are not sure their cards are safe. The information on their cards are safe with some POS operators.
But for the POS operators now, FUHAD, sorry to cut you, they also have a concern as people are now sending fake alerts.
And that's another one. I think somebody told me recently that sending fake alerts is now so easy. That all you need to do maybe is to use some of these old phones, and the technology to create fake alerts has become so easy. Or you just need to know how to do and go about these things. We're talking about POS operators, even people who now sell markets. Some of them are refusing to take bank transfers now because of this fake alert that is now very common. I'm talking about normal market women who sell goods and services, who sell goods.
Okay.
When you say that you want to do transfer, they say no, they are not collecting transfer. Go to an ATM point, bring cash, because of this fake alert syndrome that we are now having. So for these fraudsters, they keep inventing their trade. So I think our financial institutions need to step up. The CBN as the major regulatory body for banking services needs to step up. And I think we need to step up on cyber security, because the reality is that these fraudsters are also stepping up. They are not resting. They keep reinventing the wheel so that they can take advantage of Nigerians. So it's a big one that we need to focus on. But again, what can Nigerians do? It has to be the job of the government to secure Nigerians and their funds.
Well, it's become a serious issue. Ordinarily, data mining is the process of sorting through large data sets to identify patterns and relationships that can help solve business problems through analysis. But lately, the practice has become dangerously exploitative, as cyber criminals through various platforms are exploiting the vulnerabilities of unsuspecting individuals to wreak havoc, largely financials, on them. So it is important to put this out there. I hope some sort of orientation would also go out, especially to the semi-literate now, that we would say, maybe a semi-literate, or just people who need the information to just get the information as regards how. I
think information is for everyone, Sandra. You can't be too smart with these guys,
Okay. Well,
everybody can fall prey.
Thank you. Well, customers have been advised not to expose information such as your card verification value. That is the number that is at the back, the 3 digits, whatever that you have on the back of your card. Yes, yeah. And then expiration date of your debit card. Yes, that's also very, very important. Because most customers are now getting debited because important information about their accounts had been disclosed to third parties. All right, so maybe should we now be wary of POS operators, or what exactly is the way forward, or what would you suggest, FUHAD?
The POS operators are also vulnerable. We just talked about the fact that they're also getting fake alerts. I just think Nigerians have to be very careful. Like I said, I've seen people who have told me they get to POS point, they don't use their cards again, they demand for their account number and do transfers. But again, in situations where you don't have data, maybe your bank app is acting up, and then you need money and you need to use it. So I think it's just about being very careful. Probably just patronize the POS operators very well, if it's in your locality. But again, it's just about being careful. And then, of course, the banks also stepping up on cyber security for their customers.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on now, FUHAD, still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, we also have single-term tenure is enough for president and governors. Well, it's actually an editorial of the Guardian, but I'm wondering what they have to say as regards this. There's a suggestion lately from the governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, that governors can do with 1 term in office, as against
after he got his second term.
After he got his second term.
Yeah.
Well, as against, so is now suggesting a reenactment of age-old debate about the desirability of one term for elected public officers, when sometime in 2003 or 2007 we had a president who wanted to go for a third term. So do you think it is possible for our politicians to be so selfless to say, oh, let me just come do my bit? Barrister Curtis mentioned something yesterday about Madiba, that's Nelson Mandela. He promised one term, he got there, did what he had to do, and is it possible? Yes, is it possible that we have politicians who can be that selfless?
Well, it is possible, but there's this debate about a single term or two terms. The advantages and disadvantages. If you look at us having a single term tenure for our governors, president, chairman, or whether we have two terms. There have been debates about what are the advantages and disadvantages. In the past, I think there have been suggestions as to us having just one single term for our president, governors, and chairmen. Basically having 6 years single term instead of 4 years. You just go for 6 years, and that's all. But people have said that the second term thing for politicians is like a referendum on their performance. So basically what you use the second term to do is to tell them whether they performed or not. So the idea that there's a second term waiting for them keeps them on their toes, makes them want to perform, because they know they would have to go back to the people to seek re-election. But there are people who say that, look, there's no need. You go through the electoral process, you have a 6 years mandate, do whatever you need to do and allow somebody else to take over. But I'm sure the American system that allows for a second term, again, creates that opportunity so that there's a form of referendum on the performance of either the president, the governor, or the chairman, and all of that. So the debate is ongoing, but the reality is in standard. Whether it is single or two term, the most important thing is that, look, are these politicians magnanimous enough to deliver the goods for the people? Would they concentrate? Would they stay away from corruption and get into power and do what the people have voted them in to do? That's the question. You can do one or two terms, but the question is, would you deliver the goods as far as the dividends of democracy is concerned for the people? The debate will not end, because there are two sides to this conversation. There are always two sides to this conversation.
Yes, exactly. Because from this report, it's stated here now that the fact that some political actors who demonstrated exemplary leadership with landmark achievements did so while serving as heads of executive arm of government in a single term. That's what was highlighted. You have samples of Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Ahmadu Bello, Dr. Michael Okpara, and co. But I want to ask you a question now, Fuhad. Would you go with a two-term, as long as the person is, effective, or as long as the person is efficient, or would you say single term 7 years?
Honestly, I don't know where to stay here, really, because I don't mind two terms, I don't mind single term. I think what is important to me is for us to have a better electoral process, Sandra, because whether it's single term or two terms, if our electoral process is still faulty, the way it is faulty now, where people are manipulating figures, where they look at what happened in Edo State now. We can't be having something like that and be talking about single or double terms. For me, I think we should concentrate more on the electoral process, how people get into power, whether it's single or two terms. That's the most important thing for me, really.
Well, do you
can do one or single term? It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Do you believe, or do you agree that a single term of office for president and governors would readily facilitate power shift amongst contending interests and foster some sense of belonging across different sections of the country?
Well, it depends. If we have a constitutional arrangement, for example, that talks about single term and talks about rotational presidency, or for governorship, it's also okay. You have these senatorial zones. You must move the governorship around the 3 senatorial zones. These things are not, it doesn't come with hard and fast rules, Sandra. It's not about single term. It's about our constitution. We'll have to think out with our constitution. We'll have to rework our constitution to accommodate everyone. If you understand what I'm saying, because it can still be single term. Because again, one of the problems in our state is that, look, there are dominant ethnic groups that takes over everything. Remember what 𝗪𝗁𝗁 said in 𝗪𝗵𝗁, where it comes from. His own people have never become governor because they don't have the population. You understand? So even if it's single term and there's no constitutional arrangement that allows for minorities to also get into power, the dominant ethnic groups will continue to take the spoil from them. If you understand what I'm saying, they continue to dominate them. In Kogi State, for example, Kogi West, you know, the 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝗂𝗪 part of Kogi West, if they are not careful, they will never become governor unless a miracle happens. So even if it's single or double term, if there's no constitutional arrangement that allows power to move around territorial zones, and maybe in Nigeria, for example, among the six geopolitical zones, then nothing will change. It's always about the winner takes it all. The more dominant people, you know, dominate the political space, and they continue to rule.
Thank you, Fuhad. Let's move on now. Still on the front page of The Guardian, NLC insists on strike despite government overtures as new tax regime commences. And that story is on page 6 of The Guardian newspaper. So just very quickly, the report is here. Ahead of tomorrow's 2-day nationwide warning strike, marshaled by the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC. This is the third since the removal of fuel subsidy in June. We have public schools, hospitals, seaports, airports, among other public institutions have expressed readiness to mobilize workers to down tools across the sectors. There was, you know, a short conversation as regards this yesterday, Fuhad. Your thoughts, please.
Hello, I'm with you.
Hello?
Yes, I'm with you. I can hear you.
Yes, I was saying your thoughts, please, as this is the third time that NLC will be coming forward to, you know, declare a warning strike. I don't know if it's warning strike now or preparatory strike. Protest. I don't know why they keep warning that, oh, we're going to strike, and then we don't get it. But this is the third time they're doing that. So what are your thoughts as regards NLC's, you know, position? And still on this same matter, because, you know, yesterday, Joseph Olorunsho mentioned something that maybe they should focus on other things. Say, for example, the distribution of the palliative or food items or whatever it is that they are sharing in states now. Is NLC, you know, ensuring that the whatever needs to get to whoever gets to them? So do you think the NLC should maybe look at other things? There are so many other things that need their attention as against this warning strike that we keep getting as regards for subsidy removal.
Well, everything that the NLC should look at, you know, at least in the short term, have been put before the government. And what the NLC is saying is that there's no reaction, there's nothing coming from the government. You know, all of their negotiations with government, their discussions with government, what the NLC is saying is that, look, the government has done nothing about it. Look, this issue of palliative is a waste of time, and that's my own position. I'll continue to maintain it. In Lagos, for example, now the governor has said that, okay, they'll start to share rice and beans, and they are going to target about 500,000 persons in Lagos, Sandra, in a city of over 17 million people. If you understand what I'm saying. Then how do you identify the vulnerable? I've said it, Sandra. The idea of sharing rice and beans or grain as a form of palliative is a waste of time. It will not achieve anything. So for people who are still looking for palliative, that's their own problem. As far as I'm concerned, though, the most useless thing that any government can do to assuage the sufferings of their people is to think about sharing rice and beans as a form of palliative. And we're already seeing the results. We're already seeing that it's a complete waste of time. It will not achieve anything. As far as labor is concerned, the demands are clear to government. They are talking about increments in minimum wage. They are talking about a whole lot of things that concern the welfare of their members, and Nigerians are extension of this subsidy removal. And that this is the issue. I think the Labour Congress, the organized labor, needs to be more pragmatic and more organized in the way they do things. The idea of blowing hot and cold would not work. They need to devise a better strategy to handle this particular government. And that's just the reality. And I keep telling the supporters of this government, who at every opportunity wants to congratulate the Labour Congress, organized labor, you know, because you know, we said it yesterday, Sandra. The government is coming to the Labour Congress and Nigerians. Oh, be patient with us. Oh, just give us more time. But the question is this, for how long? The suffering keeps getting worse, Sandra. Price of PMS has gone to a particular point where Nigerians are now suffering endlessly. Unfortunately, the same Nigerians you are telling to exercise patience, to keep calm and hope on the government, see that the government is not even ready to tighten its own belt. You have an over-bloated ministerial position that comes as a result of political patronage. The National Assembly, jokes are every time about the realities of Nigeria. They keep spending a lot of money. So the Nigerians sit back and see that nothing is changing. The politicians are still living larger than life. There's no sacrifice coming from their end. The Labour Congress look at their members. Sandra, yesterday, remember on the show Political Roundtable, I talked about the realities of Nigeria now in terms of access to health care. Even to go to our public hospitals now have become extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. You have to pay through your nose. In Lagos here, someone I know has been admitted in last week now for 5 or 6 days. They've done almost $500,000 in terms of admission, drugs, tests, and everything. That is a public hospital. How many poor Nigerians can afford that? We reviewed stories in the past where people are now removing their people from public hospitals and going to Alagbo to sort their case out because they can't afford prescription drugs. That is the reality of Nigerians at this time. On the part of the politicians, where is the sacrifice? How are they tightening their belts? So again, Labour needs to devise a different strategy. We understand what they are saying, and the fact that the government is so disorganized, there's no plan as to what to do to assuage the sufferings of Nigerians on subsidy removal. Again, Sandra, we need to tell Nigerians who keep congratulating Labour, if you want to have a democracy that works for all, we must support every layer for checks and balances in a democracy. You have the executive, you have the legislature. Now, what kind of legislature do we have? The 10th Assembly, Sandra. Don't we have our worries and concerns that this 10th Assembly may not provide the needed checks and balances that we want in a democracy? What kind of judiciary do we have now, Sandra, at this time? There is apprehension, there is concern about the independence of the judiciary. Now we are talking about the fourth estate of the realm, which is the media. We are doing our job. But to a great extent, how many of the media act independent and speak for the people and inform the people the way they should? A lot of politicians now own media houses and are stifling independent media. The last level that we should be careful to continue to castigate is organized labor and civil society organizations. Yes, the Labour Congress might have their own issues, but we must support them if indeed we want democracy to work for Nigerians. All I will tell Labour Congress is that, look, whether it's warning strike or not, their leaders need to sit back and devise a better strategy. I see a situation where the government is already pushing divide and rule. In the papers, we're already seeing that TUC say they will not join the strike. If we succeed, or if the government succeeds in breaking the rank and file of the organized labor, we're in trouble, Sandra, as far as democracy is concerned in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much, FUHAD. But then, is there much to expect from our new Minister of Labour and Employment, former Governor Simon Lalong?
What do we expect? It's going to be some of the same. What's he going to do?
Because
the negotiations
from beginning of time, or no, not from beginning, from the beginning of this administration, the argument had been, there was no one to talk to, there was no one to, that would be some sort of interface between the government and Labour. But now organized Labour. And now that we have not just a minister, we also have a Minister of State. So should we expect some sort of, because the federal government is going to be meeting with Labour today?
Well, as at yesterday, unless there's an update, as at yesterday, the NLC has said that they didn't get any invitation from the government. So they were not aware of any meeting with the federal government today. And what they are saying is that they're already mobilizing their members, to embark on that 2-day warning strike tomorrow, which is going to precede a total shutdown of the economy. Nobody wants the economy to be shut down, really. We want a situation where the country can continue to move, because, again, that would disrupt the lives of the people the more. But I asked, our analysts yesterday, what other option do you think the Labour Congress have now, with a government that seems so irresponsive to their plight and demand? The only tool all over the world that you see organized labor using to force the government, coerce the government to listen to them and do their wish, is to down tool, which is strike. And it's a legitimate right of every worker, Sandra. And that's why it's a new trend now. Anytime Labour wants to go on strike, you see government running to court to stop them. And you ask yourself, is the judiciary against the rights of the people to demand for their rights? Because whether you like it or not, strike actions are legitimate rights of workers all over the world, as entrenched in the International Labour Organization Charter. And so when you now have a government who tries to break their rank and file, who runs to the judiciary to stifle the rights of the workers, we have to be concerned. we keep talking about the kind of democracy we are running in Africa, Sandra. We need to ask ourselves, what kind of democracy really do we run in Africa?
Thank you very much, Said Fuhad. More details on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper as NLC insists on strike despite government's overtures. As new tax regime commences, the new tax regime, that is the suspended increase in different taxes. When this administration took over in May, they pushed it till September, for people to be able to adjust to the petrol subsidy removal. So the new tax regime officially starts in September, which is today. So we'll see how that will also pan out. More details on page 6, as said earlier, on the Guardian newspaper. Finally, from the Guardian, hike in fees, fresh worry over dropouts and out-of-school children. And that is on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. This was also highlighted yesterday on Political Roundtable. The rising cost of living and operations are limiting access to education and beyond the reach of many parents. While many are already considering the option of enrolling their wards in public schools, others will be adding to the out-of-school group. What?
The reality of Nigerians at this time again, Sandra. So when we keep talking about the fact, very, very unfortunate. I just talked about the health sector, how expensive it is now for Nigerians to have access to health care. So when you see politicians sloganeering about free health, free education, you just laugh and shake your head. You understand? It's just mere sloganeering. They know that these things are not free. Now, the reality of Nigerians at this time, because again, the reports we are getting is that, look, a lot of parents are now looking at the option of public schools. And you see, even the public schools, go ask yourself, you still have to pay one or two things, pay that, it doesn't come completely cheap. And for a lot of parents who are so apprehensive about taking their wards to public school, you can't blame them. What is the quality of education you get from our public schools now, Sandra? Let us start with public primary school. Go and check our public, even in Lagos here. It has to be the highest level of poverty. I'm sorry. Again, I'm trying to mind my words here. The highest level of poverty, what you consider to take your child to a public primary school. Now the public, the private schools are now extremely expensive. If you have to go to a quality private school now in Lagos here, God knows how much you will pay. So what you are going to have is that, look, more out of school children will increase. Most likely you are also going to have mushroom schools all over. Mushroom schools, substandard schools will flood everywhere because people are going to be desperate to just send their kids anywhere. So it's a very untidy situation. It's a very sad situation. We talked about health now. This is education, and this is the reality of Nigeria at this time. Unfortunately, the government does not have any commitment at all to change the status quo, to change things. It's getting worse.
As private school operators increase fees for primary and secondary students by over 300%.
Will you blame them?
No. Oh, yeah. I thought you were asking me.
Well, you can't blame them.
Well,
there
are fears that many pupils may not return to school when schools resume today. It's so sad thinking about it.
A lot.
We have so many parents who are withdrawing their children from school for their inability to meet up with the cost of transportation or even paying the fees itself. So aside from paying the school fees, the fact that, you have to put food and snacks in their bags, you also have to get them new uniforms. You also have to, pay for transport that will take them to school and from school. We have teachers who have tendered their resignation because their take-home pays can no longer take them home and back to school.
Poor salaries, I agree. Yeah,
we have instances where vendors who supply one material or the other have had to increase the cost of their material, where the chalks, the exercise books, the stationaries generally for the school. So this is the unfortunate thing. We have many parents here who, there are so many schools that I've mentioned here, so many parents have said one thing or the other. No salary increase as well for teachers. Proprietors now, the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools, NAPS, said the new fuel price has affected its members' financial sustainability and ability to deliver quality education, because now they have to go for half-baked teachers, or under qualified teachers. Let me put it that way.
We have to turn the Guardian newspaper, really. I keep saying it. Doing a fantastic job.
Of
you know,
highlighting
to highlight
issues.
the realities of, exactly. You know, again, they pitch these things against the effect of removal of subsidy, so that the government can know the realities of Nigeria. But you know one thing about people in government, Sandra, I don't think they pay attention. I'm telling you, if you sit down with an average politician, you will know that these guys don't pay attention. They don't see these things. I'm sure even when they read the paper, they are probably reading the paper for their own story. You know, what you call planted story. Okay, my story come of governance in the country.
Well, as it is now, said many parents have had to withdraw. There's a mass exodus of teachers as well, an ecosystem, and engage with stakeholders to address the challenges they face. Well, parents who put their kids in school bus, I don't know, because take their kids to school because they can't afford to pay for the school bus.
But they'll still pay. They'll still pay for public transport, which is still expensive too.
Well, more details of that on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. Once again, thank you very much, The Guardian, for highlighting the real issues. All right, let's stories on the front pages of our dailies. We are live on Facebook and YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. Now, the major headline on the front page of the Punch: Tribunals reserve judgments in Lagos, Sokoto, Kano. Advisor, Labour Party, PDP are confident.
The last day of the 180 days for the tribunals to give judgment is September 16th.
Yes.
So everybody's under pressure. I'm sure that you know, there's a lot of pressure going on amongst our politicians as to what will come out of the tribunal. But I think what we need to say is this, Sandra. Wherever the decision goes, as Nigerians, we must all accept the verdict of the tribunal and move on. There are other layers to seeking justice. For the governorship, it's already sitting as a tribunal. So the final stage will be the Supreme Court. But what I'm saying is that, look, wherever the decisions go, we must all accept it and find a way to move on.
Well, thank you very much for that. Well, there is anxiety as President Bola Tinubu and 25 state governors await the verdicts of the tribunals handling the presidential week. Out of the 28 states where the governorship elections were held, the results of the polls announced by INEC are being contested in no fewer than 25 states. Most of the tribunals, which are sitting in Lagos, Sokoto, Delta, Kano, and 21 other states, as well as Abuja, had reserved their judgments after the parties concluded their hearings. A lot of ladidas. However, political parties and the candidates who are apprehensive about the outcome have resorted to prayers. We wish them all the best then. Well,
they can pray. Prayer is a prayer. Anybody can pray.
Well,
but one thing, yes, I know that God does not hear prayers of people who have rigged elections. Again, the courts will decide not on prayers. You know, they will decide on the evidences before them, the facts of the case, and so and a whole lot of other things. I know prayer is not part of what the courts will use to decide cases. So, but they can pray. Everybody has the right to pray.
This is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Still on the front page of the Punch, waste managers urge Sanwo-Olu to probe accumulated deaths, and that is on page 26 of the Punch newspaper. So very quickly, the Association of Waste Managers of Nigeria has lamented the delay in the payment of VisionScape debt to its members. The president of the association, Olugbenga Adebola, appealed to the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, to launch an investigation into plight of waste managers in the state and facilitate of movement passionately and facilitate the payment. All right. Well,
VisionScape was the one that was created by 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝘀𝗵𝗵, the former governor. So if they are still owing people, I think the government has to find a way to pay. You know, government is a continuum. Even though the VisionScape contract has been paid, to ensure that the right things are done, and then find a way to pay people who were contractors there or as waste managers.
All right, thank you very much. More details on page 26. Above the masthead of the Punch, we have Forex. Domestic operators lament over 40 aircraft grounded abroad. And that is on page 21. So very, very quickly, what we have from that is that no fewer than 40 aircraft belonging to domestic airlines are currently grounded in maintenance facilities abroad and in Nigeria due to lack of access to foreign exchange from the CBN to pay necessary bills. They have held down.
How are you saying?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know that this forest crisis goes beyond rice and beans. Affecting businesses. I said it because a lot of business interests, whether we like it or not, are still facilitated through forex. These airline operators, their regular maintenance procedures have to be paid using dollars. And now the forex scarcity, forex has gone through the roof. So some of them have failed, to meet their maintenance standards, and they can't fly. Their maintenance standards to you flying, your aircraft. Again, these are some of the things we talk about when we talk about stakeholder engagement. For policies are enacted or implemented. Again, another reality of Nigerians. The big boys are suffering now because they can't maintain their aircraft. And whether we like it or not, airfares will go up because there will now be more demand. Maybe only few airlines now can fly who have access to forex and that can maintain their aircraft. It's a reality of Nigeria again as a result of government policy that I think was not properly thought out as an issue.
Well, thank you very much, Said Fuad.
When you are breathing this morning, Sandra, every time you keep breathing, taking a big breath, calm down.
They should let me breathe, Fuad.
It's exhausting, It's exhausting.
Because there's so much to take in, and I've not even gotten to. We still have two papers to discuss.
Let's move on.
More details of that on page 21 of the Punch newspaper. That's all I'll take from the Punch. Thank you very much, Fuad. Let's move on now to the Nation newspaper. It still trends in the papers on mainland 98.3 FM, and the major headline on the front page of the Nation: TUC snubs NLC strike call. And we have a rider that says, calling workers out of work premature. We will continue to dialogue with government to ease subsidy pain. So, senior civil servants will not join the strike call by the Nigerian Labour Congress. The senior workers umbrella organization, which is the Trade Union Congress, decided at their National Executive Committee meeting yesterday in Abuja that it will continue with dialogue with the government to ease the pain of petrol subsidy removal. And they have announced that they will not be partaking in the 2-day warning strike from the NLC. What? This is
divide and rule.
Yes, exactly. Should there be any concern on the part of NLC if the TUC is not supporting its 2-day warning strike?
Well, it will depend on the way the NLC wants to react to this. Because the last 2 or 3 media briefings, we've seen the leaders of the NLC and TUC speaking with one voice. And if at this time you now have the NLC saying one thing and the TUC saying another thing, the immediate thing that comes to mind is that, hope we are not already having a divide and rule strategy coming from government to break the rank and file of the organized labor. You see, the reality of it is this, Sandra. If the organized labor decides not to be organized and speak with one voice, that's their problem. The reality is that one day, Nigerians will speak with one voice. One day, Nigerians will find their voices, and the government will hear the truth. I'm not saying it's the government trying to break the rank of labor, but if that is what is happening, because again, if we don't allow the tenet of democracy in terms of checks and balances, to allow independent media, organized labor to also speak for the people, it means that we are inviting anarchy. It means that we are inviting. Look, the reality is that whatever labor is saying or the TUC is saying is about the reality of Nigeria. And if the government continues to stifle the voice of the voiceless, basically the government is inviting anarchy. But again, it is there for labor and TUC to sort themselves out. If they like, they should get organized and fight for the interest of their members. If they don't like, that's their problem. Nigerians will one day demand for their rights.
Thank you. More details on page 8 of the Nation newspaper. We also have here now, flood risk rises in Lagos, Nasarawa, Bayelsa coastal communities. Citing increased risk of flooding, governments of Lagos and Nasarawa have urged those living in their coastal communities to relocate immediately. Some residents in threatened Otoke, which happens to be the hometown of former president of the country, Goodluck Jonathan, have also urged the federal and state government to come to their rescue. And as it is now, the agencies have been put on notice. There's a warning was given following an advice from National Emergency Management, Nigeria Meteorological Services, and Nigeria Hydrological Services. aside from the Cameroonian government that gave a warning as regards the Lagdo Dam release, there's also the rains are in now. So there's also concern as regards other parts of the country that are, especially the coastal cities and all. So
Lagos inclusive, yeah.
We hear these things every year. The conversation is always put out every year. The alert is always put out every year. But has there been any effective or definitive action taken as regards, our flooding situation?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Sandra, let's even look at Lagos. How many drainages have been constructed? What have we done really? The last, I think over the weekend, the rains fell heavily on Saturday, most importantly, and almost everywhere was flooded. Yesterday, to the same thing. Even in Ogun State, there are already warnings that there's a particular dam. The dam in Ogun State is also going to be releasing water, and most of the coastal areas along the Ogun River will be flooded. You ask yourself, has the Ogun State government done anything to dredge Ogun River to protect riverine areas around that area? Have they opened up more canals, more drainages? No, it's still the same cycle of government not being proactive or reactive. So it's unfortunate, really. Nothing is being done, and it's a vicious cycle of every year. We keep talking about these things, and nothing gets done.
All right, then, as regards that Ogun River, that there will be a water release from the Ogun River as well. Well, more details of that on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Now, we also have here, just above the masthead of the Nation, marketers, why we can't break NNPCL's import monopoly. And that is on page 8 of the Nation. So just very quickly, what exactly is the problem? Lack of access to foreign exchange. Simple. And also price control, has forced independent marketers to abandon initial attempts at importation of petrol. FUHAD. So the inability to source for
import for forex.
Yes.
It's as simple. We said it now. If you give 1 million licenses for people to import, the tool to import is the forex. And if the forex is not available, what do? The owners of these PMS products will not collect naira. They will collect dollars, and the dollars are not available. So it's a problem. And so what it means is that it's only the big players that will have access to forex, will be able to import. I suspect the NNPC is still the one facilitating majorly the importation, probably use 1 or 2 contractors. So you have a situation where you have the dominant players being able to do these things, most of them go up. It's unfortunate that we are here because we don't have functional refineries. There is no two way to it. The only reason why there is this crisis and this problem is because we don't have functional refineries. If we have our own refineries running here at SANDRA, we don't need to dollarize it. We just put naira on it, and we take care of our local needs. So it's not rocket science, and unfortunately, we are not seeing serious commitment from the government, to get local refineries working. The Port Harcourt refinery has a December date, timeline, refining capacity. It's going to be enough to even sustain the country.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but just, moving on from that one, the details you can get on page 8 of the Nation. Pupils' performance to determine teachers' promotion in Ondo, and that's on page 7. We won't be able to take any stories from Vanguard, but then just the major headline: 7.71 billion naira rise in naira value of forex deposits shoots up money supply. The story is on page 19 of Vanguard newspaper. Well, that's all we can take, unfortunately, but we'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, where you get to be a part of the conversation. This is Mainland 98.3 FM, and we are the sound of Lagos.
Your whole world comes crashing down. Is look up. Assemble the team. It's showtime. The brains. Wake it up.
What'd you have for breakfast?
We are the sound of Lagos, and this is Mainland 98.3 FM.
You didn't see that coming, did you?
The Broadcast Art Institute Supplementary Admissions 2022-2023. Few vacancies exist in the departments of broadcast journalism and multimedia technology for admission in the 2022-2023 session. If you scored 100 and above in the 2022-2023 UTME and have 5 relevant credits and have not gained admission, you can change over to the Broadcast Art Institute, Lagos for National Diploma in Broadcast Journalism, Odofin Street, Igbobo, Ikorodu,